Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and we are here for another set review. It's Zendikar Rising time, right? So we've got a whole bunch of cards to look at. I'm currently on Twitch, as you can see over on the right hand side. We've got chat, we've got people clicking on cards because they can rate. They're going to have a heat map of where they click to show their input on how they think the card should be rated. Am I going to agree with them? We'll see. Make sure that you go check out twitch.tv/Semulin. By the time this video is going up, we have already done our set review, but you can go check the VOD where me and Semulin did a tag team set review, so you can see if I agreed with my own ratings, if Semulin talked me out of some, if I talked him into some. Should be a good time over there, so go check that out at twitch.tv/Semulin/videos. And yeah, today we're going to start off with the gold cards, so let's get started with Akiri, Fearless Voyager. Akiri, Fearless Voyager is 1 red-white for a legendary creature core warrior at rare. She's a 3/3. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. Pay a single white mana. You may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So 3/3 for 3 is totally fine. That's what red wants. Passes the vanilla test. Equipment is more plentiful than normal in this set, and as we'll see, it has generally a pretty cool little bonus to it where it auto equips, although the equip costs are still typically pretty expensive. So you can kind of expect that you're going to be able to get some equipment onto creatures here, which means you may be drawing a card when this attacks, which is something else that red white's going to love. And the single white mana to regenerate a creature just by unattaching equipment is kind of nifty as well. I think this is a pretty darn strong B. This is not in the bomb range. This is not single-handedly winning you the game because you have to have this creature, you have to have the equipment down and on something, you have to be attacking with the creature that has that equipment on it. So I'm not going to go into the A range for this. I don't think it's a bomb, but I think it is still a very high pick. It's going to be one of the best cards in your red-white deck, probably. So I think it is around the B plus range. Yeah, it's just going to depend on if you get the equipment. You could whiff, in which case this is still a fine card, but yeah, B plus for Akiri, Fearless Voyager. Up next is Brushfire Elemental. Brushfire Elemental is red-green for a creature elemental at uncommon. It's a 1/1 with haste. Brushfire Elemental can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. It's got landfall. Landfall's back in Zendikar, of course. Landfall is whenever a land enters the battlefield, something happens. In this case, Brushfire Elemental gets +2/+2 until end of turn, which is a callback to the original Zendikar landfall. Most landfall on creatures in Zendikar was +2/+2. Yeah, so this is a 1/1 for 2 with haste, which can't be blocked by little things, which is not a card that I'm super excited about, but a lot of turns, this is going to be a 3/3 that can't be blocked by little tiny things. There are some ways to get more lands onto the battlefield in a single turn. I wouldn't expect that to be a super common thing, but it is something that there are some ways of doing, and in fact, sometimes even repeatedly doing. This is going to be a very good aggressive creature in the red-green deck, which is going to be landfall aggro kind of plan, and it's going to do exactly what you need to do. It's nowhere near a bomb. It's nowhere near a super high pick. This is a card that I would love to see pack 3 when I'm red-green, pack 2 when I'm red-green. This is a card that I'm happy to pick up when I'm red or green and leading towards that that kind of deck. So I think it's in like the B- range. I think it is better than a C+. I don't think we're going to put it into the C range, but I think a B- is about where I want this, because this isn't winning a game on its own. It's just a nice aggressive creature. So B- for Brushfire Elemental. Up next is Cleric of Life's Bond. Cleric of Life's Bond is white-black for a creature vampire cleric at uncommon. It's a 2/2. Whenever another cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Cleric of Life's Bond. In a wild, game-changing thing, Wizards of the Coast has decided that black-white should be the life gain deck this time around. Yeah, it's a 2/2 for 2. That's totally fine. And if you have a bunch of clerics, you can perhaps gain a life and put a counter on this. Black-white is where the most clerics exist. When I last looked at it, I think it was like, I want to say there were 6 white clerics and maybe 6 black clerics. So clerics exist in black-white. They are there. And there's a couple in the other colors as well. Maybe 1 in the other colors. So yeah, if you have life gain shenanigans, this can grow. This is a a Johnny's Pride Mate with perhaps a little bit more work going on. But yeah, if you're black-white, you're probably going to be in this archetype. You're going to want this card. It's going to be a card that makes that deck kind of tick. So I think it's in like the B- range. Again, it's not a bomb. It's not blowing things out of the water. It's not a super high pick, but it's a card that you want for that deck. So B- for Cleric of Life's Bond. Up next is Gracma, Skyclave Ravager. Gracma is 1 black-green for a legendary creature Hydra Horror at rare. It's a 0/0, but it does enter the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, so it's a 3/3 for 3. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on Gracma. When Gracma dies, create an XX black and green Hydra creature token where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Gracma. When it dies, it makes itself again. This is really good. We haven't seen the black-green signpost on common yet, but the black-green deck is +1/+1 counters. This is just the signpost on common times 11. Yeah, this is a great card at the absolute bare minimum. It's a 3/3 for 3, which you'll play. That's kind of like a C range card. And the fact that if you do have creatures dying, you get counters on this. There are things that want counters that can give this menace because it has a counter on it, or can I would assume there's double counters or something like that. There's a lot of stuff going on with counters in black green, and the fact that when this dies it just replaces itself exactly is kind of nutty. Yeah, I think this is a solid A. I'm going to keep it out of the A+ range just because by itself it doesn't just magically win the game. You do want to be getting counters on this. You want to be getting rewarded for counters on this. There's a lot of time to answer this. There's exile effects that could answer this. The token is vulnerable to bounce. So all of these downsides mean that it is only an A. Only an A for Gracma Skyclave Ravager. Up next is Kargan Warleader. Kargan Warleader is 1 red-white for a creature human warrior at uncommon. It's a 3/3. Other warriors you control get +1/+1. That's right, red-white is the aggro color. Yeah, this is red-white's going to be very happy with this. It's a 3/3 for 3. That's cool. Red-white loves, you know, properly costed vanilla creatures, and red-white has the most warriors in the set. I think it's around 6-ish, 7-ish warriors in each color. So this can just be a great build around for the aggro deck. Like, you're gonna love this card if you have warriors on it, and at the bare minimum, it's a 3/3 for 3. We've seen a lot of 3/3s for 3, and we've barely started the set review. I think this is around like a B. You know, it's not going to win the game on its own, but it's going to be a super valuable card for that red-white deck. You're not splashing this or anything, but yeah, just a B for Kargan Warleader. Up next is Kaza Royal Chaser. Kaza Royal Chaser is blue-red for a legendary creature human wizard at rare. It's a 1/2 flying haste. Tap the next instant or sorcery spell that you cast this turn. Costs X less to cast, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. So it's a 1/2 flying haste for 2. I don't really like that. You tap it, and the next instant or sorcery spell costs at least 1 less, because you have this wizard down, and perhaps you have more wizards down. Blue-red is the wizard's color, just like we've seen the cleric color and the warrior's color, and we'll soon see the rogue color. And in fact, the blue-red spells deck is the blue-red spells and wizards deck, so you can perhaps have wizards here. The one issue I have with this is that making the blue-red deck the blue-red spells and wizards deck, I think means that you will see some more creatures than you might normally see in a blue-red spells deck. And so that's always one of my issues with going too deep on spells or spells matters cards, is that you frequently just don't have enough instants and sorceries to go off on this. Now, luckily, it's a 1/2 flying haste for 2, and I always underrate 1/2 flyers for 2, and someday I'll learn, and maybe this is the day. So you obviously have to build around this card. It's not a bomb by any shape of the imagination, so it's definitely not an A. It's definitely in the B sort of synergy, good, useful utility creature card. I don't think I'm ever first picking this. The pack would have to be, I think, pretty bad, because I think I'm taking every removal spell over this card. But yeah, I think this is totally fine as like a B-. just because it does require some build around. It requires some work for it to go off. It requires some luck for it to go off, for you to really get a lot of value out of that tap ability. But if you do, it's going to be pretty nice. That said, I am super excited about the blue-red spells deck because it's always my favorite color combo. Up next is Linvala, Shield of the Seagate. Linvala is 1 white-blue for a legendary creature human wizard at rare. She's a 3/3 flyer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls until your next turn. It can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Sacrifice Linvala, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. So we haven't talked about party yet, but that's another mechanic in this set. A party is a wizard, a warrior, a cleric, and a rogue. A full party is one of each of those. It has to be 4 creatures. You can't have one creature that is all 4. That still would only be 1 party member. So if you have a full party, then you get to detain a creature. This is the mechanic detain from Return to Ravnica. I think it's going to be kind of tricky to get a full party. I think it's going to be super easy to get 1 because, of course, they count themselves. This angel wizard is 1/4 of a party. I think it's going to be pretty darn easy to get 2. I think 3 is going to be a little bit trickier, and I think a full party is going to be difficult because how are you getting a full party? You're going to have to, if we're in blue-white, we're going to have clerics, we're going to have wizards, we're going to have warriors. The rogues are only going to come from blue, and I guess the clerics are only really going to come from white. If we have an even number of all of them, that's still pretty tricky for us to explicitly get the exact 4 that we need on the battlefield. So I'd be very careful about thinking that you're going to get full party frequently. Luckily, most of the party cards don't care about full party, and they're still going to be pretty good. So I'm curious to see how commonly we can do this, how commonly we can get full party. If we do, Linvala is going to be nutty. Luckily, she's also a 3/3 flyer for 3, which is just great. And she does have that sacrifice effect to save creatures if need be. And you actually kind of somewhat cutely have 2 different ways of saving them. You could save them via hexproof if they're being targeted. You could save them via indestructibility if they're being wrathed or something. So kind of cool, but I'm really curious to see how the full party goes. So I think she's just kind of like a B because she is a 3/3 flyer for 3, and she has that nice little bit of insurance. And there's that cool if it happens full party thing. Up next is Lull Magus Familiar. Lull Magus Familiar is 1 green-blue for a creature beast at uncommon. It's a 2/4, tap to add green or blue. Whenever you cast a kicked spell, you gain 2 life. Green-blue is the kicker colors. Kicker is back. And obviously the ramp colors as well. And what does Kicker love? Kicker loves ramp. This is just a very solid mana dork. A 3-mana 2/4 mana dork. Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm going to play this card as much as I possibly can because this thing's going to live, it's going to block, it could attack, and it ramps. And then the kicked spell gain 2 life thing is cute. This isn't the payoff that I'm looking for. The payoff that I'm looking for kicking spells, honestly, is just kicking the spell. The 2 life gain is just nice little bit of gravy on there. I think this is like a very strong B. I'm not quite going to go into B+, because again, this is just a mana dork, but it's a very good mana dork. So strong B for Lull Magus Familiar. Up next is Moss Pit Skeleton. Moss Pit Skeleton is black-green for a creature plant skeleton at uncommon. It's a 2/2. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, if Moss Pit Skeleton is in your graveyard, you may put it on top of your library. It has Kicker for 3. If Moss Pit Skeleton was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. This is a really cool card. It's a 2/2 for 2 if you cast it on turn 2. Sure, whatever, that's fine. That's all it does. It eventually chumps or trades, goes to the graveyard. Then you're in black-green, which is the counter colors. You put counters on something, this goes on top of your library. That's really slow, but you're not drawing a 2/2 anymore. Probably, hopefully you've drawn enough lands. You are drawing a 5/5 for 5 with counters that probably has some sort of synergy with other cards in your on the battlefield and whatnot. I think this card's really good. It does kind of remind me of Untamed Kavu. That could be a 2/2 or a 5/5. This is a very solid card. I think every black-green deck is going to want as many copies of this as you can get. I think I've got to put this to a B+. I think I've got to put this to a B+. It's just such a good card. It's not a bomb, so it's obviously not going into the A range. But this might be my favorite of the signpost uncommons I've seen so far. Just that recursion and getting it back as a 5/5 seems really good. Yeah, so B+ for Moss Pit Skeleton. I'm excited to give it a try. Up next is Marasa Root Grazer. Marasa Root Grazer is green-white for a creature beasted uncommon. It's a 2/3 with vigilance. Tap it, you may put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Tap it, return target basic land card you control to its owner's hand. So green-white is clearly going to be another landfall color, and this is going to be, I guess, the realm of perhaps multiple land drops. This is where you could get 2 land drops in a turn. It's going to be tricky. Now, luckily, it has vigilance, so you can attack and then do your shenanigans on your opponent's turn. But this is where I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty in figuring this card out. The first ability, of course, is something that people vastly overrate. Eventually, you run out of cards or lands in your hand, and that first tap ability just doesn't happen. But this has the second tap ability to allow you to continue doing it, or perhaps just do your initial land play. Additionally, we haven't seen them yet, but there are dual-faced land cards, so you can bounce back that dual-faced land card, flip it over, cast the spell. There's a lot going on here, and I think this is probably going to have a lot of utility, whether it be landfall, whether it be returning your modal dual-faced cards. And it's a 2/3 for 2 with vigilance. It blows the vanilla test out of the water. Oh, you can only return basic lands. You can only return basic lands. That drops this a fair bit. Yeah, I was almost talking myself up to a B+, but I think I'm going to be at a B here. 2/3 vigilance for 2 with appropriate mechanic for the colors, I think is very solid. Let's go with a B for Marasa Root Grazer, but I'm very curious how it's going to work out. This feels like one of those things where it's going to be a high skill level to know when to do it, how to do it, what to do with it, and how to go off with it. But let's start it with a B with Marasa Root Grazer, and keep an eye on what the rest of the green and white cards look like. Up next is our first Planeswalker, Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients. Nahiri is 2 red-white for a legendary Planeswalker. Nahiri at Mythic, she starts with 4 loyalty, passes the loyalty vanilla test. +1, create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token. You may attach an equipment you control to it. -2, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a warrior or equipment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. -3, Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients, deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the number of equipment you control. So +1, make a 1/1. Cool. She protects herself. Not with an amazing creature, but she protects herself. And if you have equipment laying around that is unattached or that you want to switch over from another creature, you can. Maybe that 1/1 is actually a big creature. We'll have to see. It's also a warrior, which is a relevant subtype for party and for the red-white, as we saw with the uncommon. -2, look at the top 6 cards of your library, pick a warrior or equipment from it, and put it into your hand. Sure, if you're red-white, you're going to find warriors. You're going to find equipment, hopefully, because that's what's going to make the red-white aggro deck even better. You're going to find something. You know, top 6, card selection, cool. If she doesn't have to protect herself, she's got stuff going on. And then -3, dealing damage to a creature, twice the equipment. We'll have to see. Like in a limited deck, I don't know if you're going to really have much more than 2 or 3 equipment, because you can't load up on equipment, because then you have less creatures. So this is probably a shock or a flame spill. But it's there. It's there if you need it. It can pick some things off. It's got threat of activation after combat, stuff like that. So yeah, I think Nahiri's very great. She's not the Okos. She's not a splashable planeswalker. I don't think you're really splashing this in many decks. It would depend on exactly what the aggro looks like. But I think she is a solid A. You're going to first pick this out of every pack that you see. You're going to try to get into red-white, and she's going to do amazing things there. She's an A. A for Nahiri, Heir of Ancients. Up next is Nisha of Shadowed Bows. Nisha of Shadowed Bows is 2 black-green for a legendary planeswalker Nisha at Mythic. She starts with 4 loyalty, passes the vanilla test. She has landfall. That's right, we've got a Planeswalker with landfall here. Whenever land ETBs, put a loyalty counter on Nisha of Shadowed Bows. So she actually gets an extra loyalty counter every turn that you drop a land. +1, untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still a land. So doesn't protect herself, but gets aggro. -5, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control on the battlefield, which presumably is going to be at least 4, onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. That's huge. That's huge. And you could, you know, if this was going to be like the game-changing move, you could play her on turn 4, play your on turn 5, play your 5th land, get her up to 5, -5, and drop a 10 drop from your hand, or reanimate. And it's got 2 +1/+1 counters on it. This is a very interesting card. I am wondering if you can reuse this ultimate, because like let's say that we have her at 4, we get her to 5, we get her to 6, we -5. It's a lot of turns until we're going to do that the second time. So I do think that this -5 is probably going to be a one-time use per game on average. But if it's a big thing, then that's going to be great. I guess you're not dropping a 10 drop. No, you're dropping a 5 drop, aren't you? Because it does have that restriction. But still, if you drop a big flying demon or something, it's going to be good. Plus, it just upgrades all of your creatures with the 2 +1/+1 counters. I think this is a very strong card. I think this could actually be a splashable Planeswalker, which I think we just have to put her into the A+ range. She does a lot of work. Yeah, I think she's great. I'm going to put her in the A+ range because you can splash her. She is not locked into her deck quite as much as Nahiri is. Up next is Omnath, Locus of Creation. It's an F. Up next is... all right, let's go back and talk about it. Omnath, Locus of Creation is red, green, white, blue for a legendary creature elemental at Mythic. It's a 4/4. When it ETBs, draw a card. It's got landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, add red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. You're not doing this 3 times. That's just not happening. Doing it twice, well, we saw that in green-white we have found a way to do it twice. And what do we get? We get 4 mana? Okay, I guess. And the first time we just get 4 life. We draw a card. It's a 4/4 for 4, which, you know, means that we have a vanilla test passing creature and it draws a card, but I don't think you're splashing for 4-color decks in this format. I don't think you're splashing 4-color decks to get a Llanowar Visionary that has an extra point of damage on it. I think you just don't play this card. I think that this card's not really going to be played. So I'm not excited by this card. I said F, and I mean F because I mean that you will win way more games of Magic if you just never ever try to play this card. That's what my Fs are. Somebody can play this card sometime and they're going to get lucky and it's going to work. But I'm going to give an F to Omnath just because what I mean is you should never play this card. You will win more if you don't. Yes, on the battlefield, it's not an F. I don't care. Up next is Aura, Skyclave Hierophant. Aura is 2 white-black for a legendary creature core cleric at rare. She's a 3/3. He's a 3/3. He's a 3/3 with lifelink. Whenever Aura, Skyclave Hierophant, or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. So 3/3 lifelink for 4. We've finally ruined and failed the vanilla test. Oh no. But it's got lifelink, which kind of bounces it back up. And so yeah, when it or another cleric dies, you get to return a target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from the graveyard to the battlefield. Is a cool little mechanic. Black-white is the cleric's matter deck, as we saw with Cleric of the Blood something or other. Yeah, so if you can return some clerics, that's going to be handy. If you do have that on common, that means that you're going to drain one, I think, and put a counter on that other cleric. Yeah, this is just solid. I think this is a very good card. I think it's like a strong B+. It's not a bomb. It's not blowing the game wide open when you play it, but it's very, 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 very good. So B+ for Aura, Skyclave Hierophant. Up next is Philith, World Sculptor. Philith is 4 red-green for a legendary creature elemental at rare. It's a 5/5. When Philith, World Sculptor, enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. Curious about that. Landfall, whenever a land ETB is under your control, put 4 +1/+1 counters on target plant you control. Yes, this is a 6 mana 5/5. Again, we've failed the vanilla test, but when it ETBs, you're getting some number of plants, presumably. We'll have to see how many non-basics people are playing in general, and you'll see later on when we get to the dual face cards why that might be a little bit of a question. But yeah, you'll probably get at least, I would say, 4 plants off of this on average, and you might just be getting flat out 6 plants, and all of that's going to be pretty decent. And then every time you play another land, which, you know, it turns 6, who knows how many more you're playing. You're probably playing at least a couple, but even the first one, turning one of those plants into a 4/5 is going to be pretty dang good. So yeah, I think this card's very solid. I think it probably just marches right on into the bomb territory. So we're really just kind of deciding what flavor of A we want this to be, and I think it's probably just a straight up A. I don't think it's an A+, and I don't think it's as bad as an A-. So yeah, A for Philith, World Sculptor. Seems pretty dang good. Up next is Ravager's Mace. Ravager's Mace is 1 black-red for an artifact equipment at uncommon. When Ravager's Mace enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. This is the new little mechanic. I think all the equipment, I haven't quite looked at all the equipment yet, but I think all the equipment attaches when it ETBs, which really means they're auras that then fall off and can be used later. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each creature in your party and has menace. Equip cost of 2 black-red. That equip cost sucks. That's so expensive. But 3 mana for an aura that could give +4/+0 in menace. That's awesome. But that's if we have a full party, and we had a chat about full party already. Realistically, this is like +1/+0, +2/+0, and menace, which is not an aura that I would ever play. Ever. I can put it back on things, but yeah. This being the red-black signpost on common makes me kind of sad. There is better equipment. We will see better equipment, but I think this equipment's pretty mediocre. I think it is around like the... I think it's around the C- level. Like, I think you can play it if you have a spot for it, just like you would with any kind of middling aura. But yeah, I'm not stoked on this. There's too much variability to it. And the fact that it could be +0/+0 and menace, don't like. C- for Ravager's Mace. Up next is Soaring Thought Thief. Soaring Thought Thief is blue-black for a creature human rogue at uncommon. It's a 1/3 flash flyer. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. Blue-black is the rogue deck. It is also the 8 or more cards in your opponent's graveyard deck. Kind of interesting how a lot of the color combinations seem to have 2 things going on. You know, red-white is warriors and also equipment. Blue-black is rogues and also mill, which is interesting. So yeah, this is a 1/3 flash flyer for 2, which is fine. That's like a C+ right there. If your opponent does have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, this being a 2/3 is great. Your other rogues getting +1/+0 is great. And whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, milling your opponent for 2. That's not amazing on its own, but it is a mill win condition, and I love me some mill win conditions. Yeah, I have a feeling that this is just going to do everything you want to do in every blue-black deck, whether it be killing them with rogues or killing them via mill. The variability, the versatility there, I think is really big. I think this is a strong B. I'm going to try to draft blue-black as much as humanly possible. As much as I want to play blue-red spells, I want to play blue-black mill rogues. So yeah, B for Soaring Thought Thief. Up next is Spoils of Adventure. Spoils of Adventure is 4 white-blue for an instant at uncommon. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. You gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. So yeah, blue-white is the party color, I guess. White has warriors and clerics. Blue has wizards and rogues. So these are the 2 colors where you are most likely to try to have a number of party creatures in your deck. I still don't think you're going to get full party, but luckily this one doesn't require full party. This one is 4 white blue for gain 3 and draw 3 at instant speed. In some sets, that's actually playable right there. That'll depend on the speed of this format. So this will be one of the barometer cards, I think. And we'll see a number of these barometer cards later on being good or bad, depending on if the format is slow or fast. Now, if we do have a party member making this 5 mana, making it 4/3, making it 2 mana, could be really good. It's the instant that really saves this. The 3 life, whatever, instant life gain, cool, sure, whatever. But draw 3 cards at instant speed for anything less than 6 mana is pretty dang good. I think this is around like a B-. I think it'll probably get underrated a little bit at first because it doesn't sound like it does much, and it does have a scary big casting cost printed on it. But I think this is going to be around a B- for most blue-white decks. We'll have to see exactly how the blue-white deck shapes up, because if it is the party color, then that's a very creature-focused mechanic, right? That's a very creature-focused deck. Do we want to play a card that just draws us cards? It's good, but it's not necessarily, mind-blowing there. So yeah, we'll see what blue-white ends up looking like, but I'm going to start this at a B-. I think it's totally okay. Up next is Umara Mystic. Umara Mystic is 1 blue-red for a creature, merfolk, wizard, at uncommon. She's a 1/3 with flying. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, Umara Mystic gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This is a super classic blue-red spells creature. It's a 1/3 flyer, and when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, +2/+0, except it has the bonus of also counting wizards. This is basically We Dragonauts or any of the other ones that we've seen in the past several sets. Yeah, this is just a totally fine card. It's exactly what blue-red spells is going to want. You're going to play this, and you're going to be very happy to have this. In fact, your blue-red spells deck probably sucks a little bit if you don't have 1 or more of these in the deck. So this is just a straight up B+ in that blue-red spells deck. If you are a little bit lacking on spells and wizards, I don't quite know what you're doing in those colors, really. So yeah, B+ for Umara Mystic. Up next is Verazol, the Split Current. Verazol, the Split Current is X green-blue for a legendary creature serpent at rare. It's a 0/0, but it does ETB with a +1/+1 counter on it for each mana that you spent to cast it. It's a hydroid crisis. Kind of. Yeah, hydroid crisis. Whenever you cast a kicked spell, you may remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Verazol. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the permanent. So it's a green-blue X, so it's always going to be 1 below the vanilla cost. It's going to fail the vanilla test each step, but it'll still do some things. It doesn't fly, unfortunately, and I'm always going to think that it flies, just because it does look like Hydroid Crasis's casting cost there. It enters with how much you paid, not with X. Oh, it enters with how much you paid, so it actually perfectly passes the vanilla test. Never mind. Perfectly passes the vanilla test. This card is pretty dang solid. Removing 2 counters to copy a spell, that's much more of a constructed thing. It's going to be rarer that you're going to pull that off in some amazing way in Limited. Obviously, if you're copying a removal spell and you have 2 great targets, that's going to be great. There are things that you're going to do there. I just don't overvalue the copy effect too much, because I've played a lot of Limited and I know that those effects are just overrated because you just don't have that many instants and sorceries in your hand, or in your deck rather, and yeah, don't overrate that. But we're not dropping this to like a C because it has that ability on it. It's just gravy. It's just an upside. It's just a bonus. Yeah, this is I think is it a B+ or is it an A-? I think it's a B+. It copies creatures. It copies creatures. It copies creatures, right. That's a thing that they've introduced now as well. Yeah. 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 Yeah, no, this is an A. This is an A. The fact that you could take 2 counters off to copy another bomb, or copy even just like a vanilla 5/5. Yeah, no, this is an A, and possibly even bordering on an A+. Yeah. I forgot about that. That's something that you'll need to not forget about, because that's new in this set. Copying permanents just all willy-nilly. Like, we'll actually see more cards that do that now that I remember. Yeah, let's go A+ for Verazal the Split Current. It scales perfectly. It's splashable in black-green, which will be the counter deck. I like this quite a bit. A+ for Verazal the Split Current. Up next is Yasharn, Implacable Earth. Yasharn is 2 green white for a legendary creature, elemental, boar at rare. It's a 4/4. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activated abilities. It has to be kicked. Is it a kicked spell? Oh, whenever you cast a kicked spell. Why do these cards have so many words on them? All right, let's knock it back down to an A. Remember, the blue-green deck is the kicked deck, and there are creatures that you do kick. Let's knock this back down to an A since it has to be a kicked spell. Yeah, read the cards. There's a lot of words on them. Back to Yasharn. So Yasharn is a 4/4 that lets you go and get a forest and a plains card, which you'll presumably have in your deck. They go into your hand. They don't go to the battlefield, which kind of sucks. So it's not ramping you, but it is setting you up for landfall. And as we saw, green-white is one of the landfall colors. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activated abilities, whatever. That's constructed fluff sitting there. So yeah, this is a vanilla 4/4 that gives you a couple of lands. It's not amazing. It's not fixing you. It's not ramping you. It's just helping you out with landfall, which is fine. This is still like a B-, I think, just because 4/4 for 4 is very good stats. You also get 2 lands out of your deck. You thin your deck slightly. That's not something that people should be super excited about. People do overrate the thinning ability, but it is a thing that has some percentage points of effect too. So I think I'll just go for a B- on Yasharn, maybe a B, probably just a B-. You're not super excited to first pick this card, but you'll put it in literally every green-white deck and be very happy. B- for Yasharn. Up next is Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. Zagras is 4 black-red for a legendary creature vampire rogue at rare. It's a 4/4. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. It's got flying. It's got death touch. It's got haste. Other creatures you control have death touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. That is flavor text. So this is a 4/4 flying death touch haste for 6. And my other creatures have death touch. It costs 1 less for each creature in your party, but black-red is black-red good? Black-red has clerics from black, it has warriors from red, it has wizards from red, and it has rogues from black. I guess this is one of the fuller party colors. Yeah, if this is 2 mana, I love it. If this is 3 mana, I love it. If this is 4 mana, I love it. If this is 5 mana, I love it. If it's 6 mana, I still probably love it. 6 mana 4/4 flyer, we've had those before. Having haste is cool, having death touch is cool. This is just a good card. This is one of those cards that is just like, it is good. I don't think it's a bomb, so I think I'm going to just keep it out of the A- range. Death touch in an aggressive deck is not something that I'm stoked on. I want Death Touch first strike. I want Death Touch on my defensive creatures, but I think this is a very, 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 very strong B+. Not quite going to go into the A range for this, but I think it is a B+ for Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. Up next is Xerath San, the Trickster. Xerath San the Trickster is 3 blue-black for a legendary creature, merfolk rogue at rare. It's a 4/4 with flash. Pay 2 blue-black, return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. It's got ninjutsu. Put Xerath San the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Whenever Xerath San deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So 4/4 flash for 5. That's a cool little creature right there. The fact that for 4 mana it has ninjutsu and gets to attack in if there's an unblocked rogue, and there's ways to make your rogues unblockable, which we'll talk about later as well. And then it will deal combat damage to the player, which means that you get to put a permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That's nifty. This card, I love it. I love everything about this card. I think it's going to fit perfectly in that blue-black rogues deck. It's going to get +1/+0 from the mill rogue that we saw. It's going to be flashing on in naturally. It's going to be flashing on in ninjutsu style. There's a lot going on with this, and if you start pulling things out of your opponent's graveyard, it's going to be pretty hard for them to come back. I think this probably... Does this net an A+ for me? Probably not, because there's a little bit of extra work that you have to do here. You have to be in the rogues deck. You have to connect with it. I see people rating A on the slash. So yeah, let's go with a very strong A for Xerath San. Yeah, it's ninjutsu only on rogues, but it's ninjutsu in the blue-black deck, right? Yeah, very, 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 very strong A for Xerath San, the Trickster. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of the gold cards. Yeah, I'm going to split these videos up just a little bit. We'll go into white, blue, black, red, green, and then we'll come back to the artifacts and lands at the end of the week. So like I said, make sure that you go and check out twitch.tv/semulin/videos to check out the dual set review that I'll have done, and make sure that you come back for the rest of the set reviews that'll be going up between now and next week. So thanks for watching, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.